I'm telling you, luck and timing is everything. I tried this years ago. I tried to talk to people in my neighborhood, my kids. This is before
your
anything.
persistence and your wonderful stewardship also had something to do with it. Your partners are excellent.
Absolutely.
And so are you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but it is something that just resonates. And now it's trending. Like I said, people are getting it. Food waste, 40% of all food is wasted in the U.S. You know, in San Diego now we have 1 in 3 people who is struggling with food insecurity since COVID. I mean, those are 2 statistics that are ridiculous to be next to each other. Ridiculous. So we're trying to just, mitigate that. We are trying to, connect that and reduce waste and hunger in one step.
Same business, different day.
Hello and welcome back to Same Business, Different Day podcast. I am your host, Zeke Corley, recording here in our studio at the Film Hub in Vista, California. If you haven't been here, come check it out, and I promise you'll be blown away. For a limited time, our listeners get $25 off any rental space at the Film Hub. Contact the Film Hub for more details about that. Now, I am so excited to be back with season 5 of Same Business, Different Day. To get the season off strong, I have my lovely guest co-host, Natasha Mills, one of the hosts of the newly released podcast, Odd Pairing.
Yeah.
Exciting. Very exciting. We'll talk a little bit later. So, this is the first episode of the Same Business, Different Day, season 5, and we can't wait for you to join it. We'll have some past guests come back to give us updates, and some new guests like we have today, talking to us about their wild ride. We are beginning the season off with 2 amazing people who put together 2 separate business models, yet found a way to come together to make a huge impact in San Diego County and beyond.
Hello.
Oh, yeah.
Cheers.
Please help me welcome Nita, Kurmins, Gilson from Produce Good, and Sam Chereskin from Misadventure and Company.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, I'm glad you're here. There's an applause there. You just can't hear it.
Great to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. So we want to get to know a little bit more about you guys, right? We want to start from the beginning, right? We have a little reveal kind of thing. We don't tell exactly what it is that you do. We want to talk about who you are first, right? How you got to where you are today, right? Because it's so important, right? It can be actually inspirational to people who are interested in going to business for themselves or have some of the ideals and ideas that you guys might have, right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And to that end, I am able to participate in this interview also. I'm so thrilled to be here with you, Nita, but I get to hear some of your backstory. We've been friends for years, and it's not something I know the ins and outs of.
Yeah, we're going to find
So
out some stuff.
this is going to be
today.
fun.
I'm
Pretty sure. That's going to be good. Yeah.
Where'd you grow up, Nita?
In Glendale, California.
Okay. I know Glendale.
Do you?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. Okay. So how long were you out there? Were you out there all until you went to school, or?
I was born, we first lived in Los Angeles apparently when I was a baby, and then my parents, who are first generation Americans from Latvia, moved to Glendale because it had a good school district, I guess, and was close to LA. So I lived there until I left when I was 18.
Okay, that's awesome. You have an idea? Any thoughts about what you wanted to be when you grew up?
I feel like they were really big and, romantic, but I don't remember anything super specific. I do think that somewhere along the line, there were 2 things I wanted to do. I really loved clothes and fashion.
Okay.
And I wanted to be like a personal shopper. I wanted to spend other people's money dressing them beautifully. And then at the very same time, I was very interested in psychology. So I thought I was going to be a psychologist.
Okay.
I know.
Okay. That's great. That's big dreams. That's awesome. You know what? And I bet you that folks that are personal shoppers and that Actually, Natasha would know a lot about this, but are probably really good psychologists as well.
I think probably.
Yeah, I mean, because they have to know,
you got
who
to
it
kind
is
of read everything.
Yeah. How about you, Sam? Where were you? Where are you from? Where were you born?
Well, I also was born in LA County.
Okay.
But moved to North County, San Diego, La Costa specifically, when I was 2 weeks old. So I've been here the whole time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Third generation American rather than first. But my family's also from Eastern Europe.
What part?
A lot of them are in Lithuania right now, but
Right
I know right next door.
Yeah.
But
Those Baltic
mostly ethnic Russians. And then I grew up in Encinitas.
Okay.
Yeah, and stayed there until 18 and went off to college. And I'm sure as it comes up in multiple ways in which we can engage with our hometowns and this community that we live in, I have found my adult stint in North County to be much more fulfilling than my adolescent one.
Interesting.
So since it is on video, you'll be able to tell I don't have much melanin. I do not tan very easily.
Okay.
I do not go to the beach as often as is prescribed for North County. I read a lot of books, and I probably didn't know how obnoxious I was as a kid. And all of those things paired together, I was good at school, but high school was cruel to all of us. And eventually I found a way to leave California for 8 years, and I actually didn't plan on coming back.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow. Where did you go when you left California?
Chicago.
Cold, it sounds like.
Well, Chicago, Paris, New Delhi, DC, and my last stop before moving back was London.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So, Natasha's been everywhere. She's probably been to 7 of the 8 places you just named.
Yeah, I've been to every last one you named.
You been to New Delhi also?
Yes.
When?
Jelly.
I want to say back in 2006, 2007.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was there 2009. So I was there for about 5 months. It was
So I just visited. I didn't live there.
Okay.
Yeah, I lived in Japan, Singapore. Japan, Singapore, Bahrain at the time. Yeah, so I've been all over. But I visited it's now 57 countries.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I was very busy in my younger life.
See, I bring the brains with the next co-host.
But yes, I've been to all those places that you.
I'm trying to remember that Twain quotation about all education happens through travel.
It really
like
does. It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got a lot of education during that time.
Nice.
But
I love it. So now, did you have, other than the aspirations to get out of town, did you have thoughts about what you might want to do when you grew up? Like, did you have those dreams? I mean, me personally, I remember saying for years that I wanted to be a doctor. And I don't think I ever once believed it, but I just knew that everybody was so excited every time I said
Swear on this.
Sure, you can swear. Natasha's going to give you your earful.
Hilarious.
He just reminded me of a word. There was a word of the day that some intern of mine sprung on me while we were driving right about the time we first started working on Misadventure, and we had already met. And once we get into that section of the podcast, we'll talk about all the inane errands that we ran concerning what we were trying to do. But the word was velleity. Either you know it?
Velleity.
Yeah.
How do you spell that?
Not my strong suit. I won't be able to tell you.
Valeity?
Something close. So it's the lowest form of volition. It's the kind of thing that you want to do, but the second it traipses through your mind, you already know you'll never do it.
I love it.
Volition is with a VO, so but I'll have to look that one up. I like that, velleity.
Yeah.
The very first time I heard it, I yelled to the rest of the car, "I'm going to get that tattooed on my ass."
And you knew you were.
Yeah.
That was validity right there.
That really quick reading comprehension.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah. So in terms of business-minded influencers or entrepreneurs that you guys have had some type of influence on you guys, who were they? So Nita, we'll start with you.
Yeah, start with me, please, because I'm Sam will have a much better answer than I will. I worked for myself for many years. I was a graphic designer for 20 years. But when I started Produce Good, which is a nonprofit.
Oh, you're giving it away already. It's okay. It's okay.
worries.
We'll get to that. No, we're not going to cut it. We're talking. I told you we're having fun.
Sorry. Oh, I already screwed up. I'm so
No,
sorry.
you're sorry.
No, you're fine.
All I can say is in my current life, the kind of companies and business models that were inspirational to me, I guess the best example would be something like Patagonia, where they have, it's kind of like a B Corp, where they have, you know, a for-profit arm, and then they have this nonprofit directive. And it feels like that is the very best way to operate, generally speaking, like, you know, working for profit, but then also knowing that there's part of everybody that wants to do some good. And I just love that idea. And that's really kind of the model that I would, you know, ascribe.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
What about you, Sam?
Trying to think. I've had so many positive influences in my life.
Good.
Ooh.
But I have simultaneously had a dearth of direct mentors. The ones who like specifically said, you can do what I do, and I will teach you how to do it.
I have a question. Did you seek them out? I mean, because, you know, some folks go and get a mentor, right? And then some folks, you know, they just get advice here and there, and it just turns out to work out so well for them.
I have for time to time.
Okay.
Some of the people who could have filled that role relatively naturally, and for that year, whether it was a teacher or for well, without giving away too much, like they eventually said, whatever track you're on, I don't know what it is yet, and I don't think that I'm going to pigeonhole you by telling you to do exactly what I've done.
Sure.
And so that while it was well intentioned, there was kind of an abdication also. Like no one just sat down and said, "This is the wisdom I have. This is the wisdom you should live by too."
Yeah, do this. Yeah.
And it is to some point, that's nice. To another, means you have to figure out a lot on your own. You have those bedrock foundational parts of whether it be your business philosophy or yourself as a person. If no one's willing to ascribe their wisdom to you, there's a lot of meandering through the forest until you can find it.
So, would you say it's better that way, Natasha?
I think it is, because when you think about, like, if someone is giving you advice or someone that you go into, it's kind of like they can tell you the way their experience is, and you kind of, it's like learning from other people's mistakes, right?
Right.
So if they're telling you their experience, then you kind of just go from there, like, oh, okay, I can pull something from that, or that doesn't really fit in my category, so I don't really need to pull anything from there. But I love the way that someone, you know, that you kind of just took it in terms of, like, someone was like, you know what, I'm not going to give you exactly what I did. You can kind of take what I did and see how it fits into your own life, and then I can help you in that type of way, because that works. I think that when I mentor people, that's how I do it. I say, this is what I've done, and this is how it kind of relates to yours. So if I'm doing, you know, cosmetics, right? If I'm doing cosmetics, but they're doing a beer, nothing that I have gone through is going to be the same. But life lessons, how to, if you hiring people, you know, how to run that or to be a leader, it's all the same, no matter what you kind of go through. So having those mentors that can be able to tell you, you know, hey, this is how you lead people, or this is the way that, you know, if they have a business in California, this is the laws or whatever, they can give you those type of advices. But I kind of like that way a little bit better.
Yeah. Some of what I was talking about was philosophy with a capital P.
Yeah.
Like there was one professor, the closest who ever got to describing themselves as a potential mentor or as a mentor, even though it probably never really took off after that. Saw me chain smoking outside of her class, like even though I hadn't shown up. And I went from being the bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and so thrilled about the subject matter and her presentation and just for being in that class to here I am at 19, an anxiety-riddled puddle. And she basically just grabbed my wrist and said, "Okay, what's happening? Come to my office." She was a grad student at the time, so broom closet of an office stacked with books. And she said one of the biggest problems with Western education, with kind of a withdrawal of Christian wisdom many, many years ago, was that in most pedagogical systems since then, no one's picked up and said this should replace it. So instead of someone just telling you how the world's supposed to go, what's good, what's bad, how to relate to people and how not to, what morality means to you in a way that is, even if it's not absolute, is active enough for you to engage with it as a young person.
Right.
Nothing came in and filled that void. And so some of the just like the base things that are the scariest to young people all the time, and in trying to figure out where you want to be in this world, what could then translate into a fulfilling career and then into a business, those things are just also absent. And so in those questions about what could be more than making money, that question started really early for me, and I didn't know it was going to translate into a business per se.
Right.
But here she is saying like, okay, I don't know what to give you, so I'm going to give you Pilgrim's Progress, the I Ching, the Quran, like here's a fat stack, and I don't know what you're going to find, but try.
Yeah, and we have these kind of conversations all the time on this show, and that's why. So I'm really glad that you shared that. This is the type of conversation we need to have. Everybody's got their own unique journey, their own experience, and you can't just be given a roadmap from somebody else, because you can go down their path, and then eventually your path's going to have to make a turn somewhere. You're going to say, I'm not you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But you were given some tools. Right? You were given these books, and then you were able to find some jewels. And so that's why this podcast is so important, and I love doing it, because what happens is everybody gets to tell that story about where they went. I say it all the time about that fork in the road, right? Some people went this way, some people went that way. And there are a lot of people that are at that point in your story, right where you were, not where you are now, but where you were. And they need to hear what turned it for you. There's somewhere chain smoking right now. You understand what I'm saying? So that's why these conversations are so important. Before we talk about your success, what's going on now, how great things are now, let's talk about how we got there. Make sense?
Yeah. Whoever's listening, to that end, the books alone didn't do it, but they were a nice
Sure.
job. Yeah.
Just a tool. I'm just talking about the tools. I get it. So Nita, I want to ask you about early experiences, right? Let's talk like first jobs. Were there like any early jobs that were like something that really just turned a light on in your head, or even just the early like those experiences that you got and you got a little bit of education out of?
Well, my first job was I was a ticket taker at the amphitheater at Universal Studios.
Okay,
That's cool.
When it was like open.
Yeah.
It's the best job for a 16-year-old you could possibly
16.
imagine.
Okay.
4 to 8 p.m. All you had to do is take people's tickets, and then whoever left tickets that were not picked up, we went to the show. It was awesome. That was the first job. Also, Universal Studios was very weird to work at, because it was all about like illusion and all the stuff behind the scenes, Jaws. They had all kinds of stuff that were it was just interesting to be, on the other side of that.
You gotta give me just a little bit more. You said weird. I want to know weird.
Well, let me just say that the idea of illusion, it was like the whole Hollywood thing. So they had, every day you have acts of, you've got this Wild West thing where they're shooting each other, falling out of a building, on the and even though as a kid, I kind of knew that, things were not what they were, but just to kind of...
They pulled the curtain back.
Yeah,
for you.
really. And then the Jaws thing was so... I don't know if you remember the very first Jaws. Okay, the very first Jaws, they actually they recreated it with a mechanical, the same little, shark. But what we would do after hours, of course, would just play around with it and make it go backwards and forwards. It was just like really piercing that illusion. It was like, and I was best friends with the guy who played Frankenstein. So, it was just it was pulling the curtain back. It was really fun. But then further along, I worked because I was actually an English major. So didn't go into fashion or psychology, but did a lot lot of reading, a lot of literature, and I worked for Architectural Digest magazine for,
that's cool.
for many years. Cool. Well, for my first real job after college years. And that also was very, very interesting because that, again, was a little bit of an illusion breaker, what really goes on back there. But I really, really enjoyed, I love writing, I love words, I love all of that. So again, all of those things were helpful to me to understand kind of maybe what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do, what I thought it was and what I didn't think it was.
Yes. And that's so important too, right? Yeah. We talk about those forks in the road. It's like you're getting some answers early on.
Right. You think, I'm going to be a famous writer. And I'm like, ooh, you know what? I don't think that's going to happen. And it was because, you know why? It was because once you start getting into the world of writing, I mean, like both, news, I worked on newspapers as well and magazines, but it's a job, it's a gig. There's like 6 different ways to spin a story. They're all, like they're all set out. And I mean, unless you feel like you truly are the person who's got that incredible story, I just thought, you know what? People are already saying these things. They're saying things way better than I could. I don't think that's where my talent is, where I'm going to, add anything. So I just kind of realized that is another one of those dreams of like, kind of like the doctor thing. It's like, ooh, like I'm going to be a writer. And people are like, ooh, yeah. But honestly, the truth of it is it's very different than what you think it is. And writing itself is actually incredibly isolating. It's very lonely.
The exact same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to want to be a writer too.
Oh, and writing, I mean, you spend months at a time, with yourself in your idea. You have to be in this space all the time because it's just, so it's not quite what you might think it is. And I did learn that pretty early on.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It was 2 points that I wanted to point out that you said that relates to this podcast, right?
Okay.
So one of the points was you said that when you worked at Universal and when you were writing for this place, there were the kind of the Wizard of Oz kind of effect, where it's like this man behind the curtain, doing these type of things. And I think that's a lot of like what this podcast is about too, is terms of like, we know these different companies, but you kind of giving that backstory of like what's behind the curtain, what's the hard work that's being done and going on that kind of goes with it. And then also something you said in terms of like being a writer, right? You was like, I want to be a writer, but there's other people that are out there doing other things. And I like to take that instance when somebody said something about like there are like 200 types of bread in a store, but it doesn't stop one person from making their own, like coming up with another bread.
I know, and I totally agree with you. I totally get that. It's just that I wasn't going to be that bread maker. I was not going to. I was not going to be doing that thing. So that is what happened.
Yeah, and I think that some people, they kind of get into this. They also get into this mindset like, there are so many other people who do this same exact thing. There's no way I'm going to stand out.
Yeah.
But I'm still buying Hostess and the other, different breads too.
So,
like if Hostess don't have a sale, then I'm going to another one, like whatever. But at the same time, those type of things are inspirational.
Did you have that with Ellie, Josh? Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Just as a back and forth on that same topic, I interpreted Nita slightly differently. I think you're absolutely right that just because there's a big company in a space or others with potentially comparable or even more talent doesn't mean that you don't still pursue what's right for you. But at the same time, I understood that through your own self-reflection, you understood that you didn't want to do it for yourself, and that some of these mechanisms were how you justified it. That there are 6 ways to spin a story. It is more rote than you think. It's not an endless font of creativity. After that, there are other people who have decided that doing this is either fulfilling or lucrative or both for them.
Sure.
And then, Nita, you chose something else.
Yeah, I didn't have, again, I wasn't, some people say I just had to write. I had to write like they have this burning desire. It's like artists, like they just can't even help themselves. It's like, this is, this is what I want to do regardless. And I didn't really have that. I mean, I was a good writer. I was very, very into it, but I didn't have a fire. So I realized, so that's to your point. I didn't realize, I realized that I wasn't going to have that and I didn't want to manufacture it.
I know you wasn't expecting this type of commercial. of another podcast coming in. But whoever you were listening to, they're irrelevant at the moment. What I'm saying right now is we have a brand new podcast that you should stop listening to whoever you listen to in this moment and listen to us at Odd Pairing. It is about adult beverages and
Wait,
Paige.
I'm supposed to tell you about that.
And Paige is going to tell you a little bit more.
So it's adult beverages, food, community, culture, and basically anything else we find interesting through the drinking.
Yeah. And as you can see, we've been drinking a lot today because we already did the episode. So at any time, you guys can find us when you finish with this podcast, whoever you're listening to. You can find us at YouTube. You can find us on Spotify and iTunes and anywhere else you get your
Instagram
podcast stuff. And you can also find us on Instagram, where you will find hilarious memes and some snippets from our show at Odd Pairing Pod. Cheers.
Cheers.
Right.
Can I interview her for a second?
Yeah, please.
I just found that really fascinating. One preluding question. Do you still write the copy for your organization now? Are you often either conned or asked to do it because you have a natural talent?
Yes, but there are three of us who also are writers. There's a lot of English majors in my world.
Okay. And then just around that idea that's something that you had natural talent for, therefore were driven to it early, but it is so psychologically pressure filled. Like some people have knacks for things that they don't enjoy the experience of once they turn it into a profession.
Right.
Writing, whether for pleasure or for a deadline, is, as Nita said, like a crucible of your own making. You're just sitting there stewing in thoughts. And
The best quote I ever heard about writing is, I was a sports writer, I can't remember his name, but it's like, writing, it's easy. You just stare at a piece of white paper until drops of blood form on your forehead. I thought, that's right. That is exactly what that feels like.
And
I love it.
I just, for the theme of this podcast, though, my question was, was that early brush with what's good and what's not around your own talent, does it still occur to you more often than you might realize? Like
Writing?
Both writing and why you didn't do it, writing and like how you formulated where you are in your career afterwards? Or is it something that I might be projecting? Like it still comes up to me a lot.
Well, it may be projecting, Sam, because I mean, I was always a really good student. You know, again, my parents were immigrants. I was like the perfect A girl, did everything right, was an English major, for God's sakes, was really good at it. But again, I was not, like I didn't have this burning desire to be doing it all the time. So to answer your question, I can do it. I enjoy words and I really love to read. So that's part of it. But I don't have an ego connected to it anymore at all. It's like I just do it because I need to do it.
I got a question about what you just said. I got to get to you, though, Sam, about your job history. I want to hear any early interesting jobs that you can talk about if you could think of something. But there was something you just said, which said that you were a really good student, and then you pointed to the fact of being an immigrant, or your family being, your parents being immigrants. Do you think that has something to do with you being a good student?
Oh, yeah. So I didn't speak English until I went to kindergarten. My parents, we didn't, and the culture that they are from, education is absolutely the top. So there was no question that it's a cultural thing for sure. And like my grandfather, for example, was the superintendent of all the schools of Latvia. So he was a big wig, and it's a very tiny country, so don't get too impressed. But anyway, so education and higher education was extremely important. So it was actually just assumed. And if I had not done well, it would have been weird. But I just did what I knew I should do, and I never even questioned it. So yes, because my parents were immigrants, that was a huge priority.
Okay, that's great. I've heard that before. I've heard that before from students of immigrants.
Yeah.
I think obviously there are other good students around the world that, that weren't, children
but it is a different category because it's really the default. It's the expectation.
Yeah.
Like there's really not, there's just no, you don't ever even think that you're not going to go. I never ever thought I wouldn't go to college.
There's no conversation.
Yeah, there's not
no
even
option. Yeah.
Don't even talk about it.
I hear you. Thank you for that. So early job experience, Sam?
My first 2 jobs, both here in North County. I was a bag boy and cart fetcher at a Vons. And I was a pizza cook at a now defunct pizzeria in Encinitas. Both were interesting experiences. One on the social side, got pretty well hazed. When I asked for a job, because my friend already worked there, the owner asked, "What were your grades in school?" I said straight A's, and he says, "That's a mark against you."
Was this at the pizza place or fun? Okay, yeah. Don't want any of those guys there.
And then my fellow coworkers took to taking raw sausage and forming it in balls around the ends of my apron strings without me knowing, just for me to be walking around with raw meat.
Like a lot of work to do some good bullying. Huh?
Whoa. Okay.
So they all got a good chuckle. And even as I said it, it still makes me laugh, but in a way that's definitely matured over time. And then Vons was fine. Good organization. It was run well, but I was 18 in the hot sun pushing carts around. And I remember thinking to myself, particularly when someone would leave a cart all the way across the parking lot, that my existence as an employee doing this job is what allows them to do this. If they didn't know that I was being paid to do this, they would be more courteous. And there was a weird mental effect there.
Yeah.
And so both of those experiences in their own way, along with some retail experiences in the middle part of my trajectory into my current job, have taught me what kind of organization and employer and leader I'd like to be in, what kind of positions I don't want to create for people where they feel like their day-to-day job is just a mitigation of other people's bad behavior.
I love it.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah. And so you're thinking about your employees already, like that early on. And that's so important. I think it's time for the reveal for that reason. As we encourage people to make a difference and help make the world a better and healthier place, so many businesses are pivoting their way to a more eco-friendly style and producing less waste. These two are masters at helping communities with hunger and finding ways to create a more sustainable solution to repurpose waste. Having the community all together to make a change creates a bigger impact than one business. Nita is the co-founder of Produce Good, and Sam is the co-founder of Misadventure & Company, winner of the New Business of the Year Award at the Heroes of Vista Gala this past March.
Thank you very much.
Two businesses that are helping contribute to reducing waste and helping those who need it. Nita and Sam, again, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Nice reveal.
Now you don't have to hold back.
I already blew it. I'm sorry.
It's all good. So Produce Good, though. How did that start? Tell me about that.
I'll
please.
try to do a quick version. I have 2 daughters. When they were teenagers, one of them particularly was very interested and very depressed by the environment and what was going on, and read a lot of books. Like her mother loved reading and read a lot of books. She would bring home these things that were just basically talking about how the world is, totally screwed and we're all going to die and it doesn't really matter and it's terrible. It was, and they were big books. I called them doorstop books. They were like, 4 inches. This guy named Derek Jensen, in case you ever want to read him. I don't recommend it though, but
I know.
You know him. Okay. Wow. Anyway, I thought, and I'm talking to this 14-year-old and she is just telling me there's nothing to be done. It's like terrible. I said, and I thought to myself, I can't accept that. I just cannot. We can do something. And before, you go from disbelief to despair, you have got to, think about it and perhaps you can do one thing. And the one thing that I started to do was Produce Good. It turned into that. Started out as very much grassroots, walking around my neighborhood in Carlsbad, looking at the trees that people had in their yards, all the fruit that's fallen on the ground, thinking, someone's got to be doing something. And I couldn't find anybody that was doing anything. So I just started that with a group of friends. It was very, very grassroots, like I said. But then I met my partners in 2014, Alexandra White and Jerry White, and we banded together to incorporate as a nonprofit. So we then became official, produced good, and from there it's been pretty much of a rocket ship in terms of what's been going on here. But the start really was that idea, telling my child, don't give up. Like, you can do something. And I said, even if you can just do one thing, it's better than not doing anything. So,
but you found something very,
and that was my one thing,
special. Though.
Yes, and that one thing has turned into a lot of things, and it's turned into a huge thing now.
An example, please. You got to give us.
1 million pounds.
Well, I did show you that video. So we, again, I started with a small group of friends. We'd go on every Friday night. We'd get boxes from Vons, and then we'd go on Saturday and pick someone's fruit in their yard and then take it to the food bank. Super simple, right? That turned into, the first 5 years I did that was very, small amount of, let's say it's 5,000 pounds total. When I met my partners, we had harvested 5,000 pounds, gleaned. I should say gleaned. I need to use that word because it's very important. Then we became Produce Good. We were able to now get grants. We were able to get, money. We were able to get backing, a lot more. And then it was also very trending. It was very much in the, it was good luck and timing. So from that point on, let's say that was 2016, 5,000 pounds. We have now harvested 1 million.
Wow.
So that's a pretty steep trajectory.
Oh, no doubt.
So that's what happened.
In 6 years.
Yeah.
1 million pounds.
1 million pounds. And this is not, again, we are just, we're the nonprofit that is running this show, but we are powered by, 3,000 volunteers. Wow. And we work with 600 growers in San Diego now. Wow. And we have about 60 partners, feeding partners. So every time we go out, which is 2 times a day, we have to find the source, the grower. We have to get the labor, or I should say the volunteer labor, and then we take it to who needs it. And that is what we do. And that's how it happened. And it's been incredible.
But that's speaking to the power of your message.
Yeah.
Because
I'm telling you, luck and timing is everything. I tried this years ago. I tried to talk to people in my neighborhood, my kids. This is before
your
anything.
Persistence and your wonderful stewardship also had something to do with it. Your partners are excellent.
Absolutely.
And so are you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it is something that just resonates. And now it's trending. Like I said, people are getting it. Food waste, 40% of all food is wasted in the U.S. In San Diego now we have 1 in 3 people who is struggling with food insecurity since COVID. I mean, those are 2 statistics that are ridiculous to be next to each other. Ridiculous. So we're trying to just, mitigate that. We are trying to, connect that and reduce waste and hunger in one step, as we like to say, one sweet step.
I'm misting up a little bit.
Are you?
As a person who's tried to run organizations based off of volunteer labor, particularly hard agricultural work in the sun during a time of global warming where being by the beach isn't good enough anymore. Everyone needs AC. You have done it's not miraculous. It's you. It's
okay, Sam. All right. I don't know what he wants here later, but that's very nice.
I agree with them. And the fact that you guys, we'll talk later about how you
I have to pay people to show up, and they still don't do it.
and that's a crisis right now in this country for sure.
I know, which is crazy, right? these people are just knocking down the doors to do this. So clearly, this is resonating with people. This is actually people. And what I have learned, and I'm sorry, I'm totally talking ahead of myself, but what I did not realize is that, I thought, okay, someone's got to be doing this. Couldn't find anybody that was doing it. Started doing it. It was easy to do because I guess I'm very bossy and have some leadership qualities that I did not know about before. And I was like, this is easy. Like, people just want to have a way to help. And that's what we do. We offer them a way to do this. And they are so grateful. And a lot of that's all they want to do. They want to go out and just pick that fruit, fill those big bins. Some people want to drive it over to the agency. But that is how I see this I mean, this thing about volunteers, it's crazy to me too, but they come to us because it is filling something for them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Sam, what about you in terms of like, first of all, Misadventure Co. I really want to know like what's in that name. How did you come up with that? And then talk about a little bit too, like how did you start, business mission, all that good stuff.
So Misadventure Company is the first distillery in the world to make alcohol from upcycled excess baked goods.
In the world.
in the
Yes.
world, carbon neutral,
Negative.
carbon negative.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if you walk into your local grocery store and you look at the hundreds of types of bread, as you referenced before, and some of them will stand out more to you than others. Maybe the Hallmark holiday style sheet cakes that you've always wondered your whole life, does anyone buy these?
And they do.
And they also don't. They end up somewhere. All of these things have a one-day shelf life. So in a country in which most industrial bakeries will likely stock shelves with at least 50% more product than they anticipate selling, just because by the psychology of us purchasing, we never want to purchase the last one.
Right.
6 days a week,
Abundance.
6 days a week, 52 weeks a year, that same bakery will pick up what didn't get sold that day and it has to go somewhere. Sometimes the retailer themselves is responsible for it. Sometimes the bakery has a self-hauling provision and they'll monetize it somehow. Either way, as Nita said, there's far more food in this world than, at least in this part of the world, than there are hungry mouths that need it. Nita, in her own way, is closing some of those gaps for those in need. What we do is, in those sections of the food economy where it is not nutritious, it is usually not distributed or able to be distributed either for health code reasons, like it has to be individually wrapped, whereas Panera's and others with business models that don't allow for individual wrapping don't get to donate to food banks, or the food banks themselves have such a wonderful ability to screen for nutritious foods for those in need, like what Nita is able to provide. We're able to take these kind of empty calorie sources and treat them as what they are, energy commodities, and turn them into alcohol in the same way an ethanol plant might in the Midwest, but at a smaller, more refined scale, and turn it into an award-winning vodka here in North County instead.
That's right.
So we have 2 perennial products right now, Misadventure Vodka, and we're launching a vanilla extract. So instead of taking cakes and turning them into vodka, we're going to start turning cakes and turning them into more cakes indirectly.
Yeah, I see.
Interesting.
And then we have a series of limited releases, and that's how we've been able to work with Produce Good most recently.
Yeah, let's talk about that collaboration.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how did that partnership develop and it's growing?
I'm going to start with like this quickest synopsis. When I was first looking for bread back in 2016, I walked in the North County Food Policy Council for the first time, listened to the meeting, participated as I could. At the end of that meeting, at which Nita was, I asked, does anyone have any extra pastries? And 6 hands shut up. But for the longest time, basically up until COVID, we were in the same room together once a month, and along with the local cities and other nonprofits, faith-based organizations, feeding organizations, both direct and indirect, a few food policy lobbying organizations trying to make the world a better place in our little corner of California. And we got to know each other over the years. We were able to participate in multiple mutual fundraisers. You were one of our recommendation letters for a $500,000 grant from the state of California.
Yes, we
Whoa.
were. We've helped each other.
One that you have obviously, only from my editorialization, but obviously have won multiple times yourselves. And together, or more next to each other.
I mean, yeah, we always wanted to do something together, and I know you guys, what you were doing was the straight vodka stuff, but we did hope that there'd be a space for us to work together because there are only so many oranges that people can eat. I mean, look at these here, these lovely things that we just picked the other day. This is just part of 5,000 pounds of what we picked that day. Now, you can hand a lot of that out, but you cannot consume all of it at one time. It's just too difficult. So you have to process it some way. And one of the things we've been hoping and wanting to do with many different organizations is to make juice or to do something with the oranges in another way. We call it value-added product or VAP. You are a VAP. And finally, it was time during COVID, I guess, when we were able to do that. We were able to have Misadventure take some of our gleaned fruit and make special editions. And it was a really big hit in terms of PR. People loved it. It was amazing because here you are. You're making, we're saving all this fruit. You're making this wonderful cocktail, and people feel really good about, supporting both of our organizations. And so it was a wonderful.
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Rachel Beld, President and CEO of the Vista Chamber of Commerce. Over the last 20 years, I've had the privilege of living and working in Vista, and I've met some amazing people with amazing stories. And I'm thrilled to bring them to you as part of Velocity, the Vista Chamber podcast, where I interview the movers, shakers, and change makers impacting the Vista community and beyond. I hope you'll join me as we journey together to hear the stories of the people doing amazing things for our town. Velocity, the Vista Chamber podcast. Find us anywhere you get your podcasts.
Hello, friends. This is Joe Samo from the Samo Law Group. I am the host of Run It By My Lawyer. Over the years, I've had so many people that have had legal issues and legal questions and legal concerns. And I always, over more than 20 years, I've been telling people, before you sign anything, before you do anything, if you have a problem, just run it by my lawyer, right? Just run it by me. And now I have a podcast doing just that. You can call me, you can email me, any questions you have. I love hearing from people and answering legal questions. And on our podcast, we've talked about everything from free speech, gun rights, anything you want to discuss, employment rights, everything. So you have an issue, run it by my lawyer and watch this podcast. You'll be entertained and you'll learn the law. Love to see you. You can find me anywhere, okay? YouTube, Spotify, Apple, whatever you want. And if you can't find me on some platform, let me know and I'll come find you. All right. Thank you.
It was absolutely great. We've done it twice now. What was the third one?
We did.
Limoncello, orangecello.
And the blueberries. The blueberries. We got the blueberries. We did blueberries also. Yes. Okay.
I won't try that French accent.
So I apologize. The reason I forget about the blueberries was because my business partner picked enough to make 18 bottles of it.
Well, we don't have to go into that now, but yes, but the idea was there. So we've set the idea, the fact that we've got this recovered fruit that can be made into something else that people are really going to love and enjoy and understand kind of what they're doing. So the two organizations, nonprofit and for-profit, are coming together to solve this problem. And
that
feels
goes back to that old dream of yours.
Yeah. So it's really kind of a great closed loop.
I love it.
Yeah.
Congratulations to both of you guys.
Thank you.
Man.
Thank
really,
you.
On some powerful innovation. We need, the world needs that, right? And it's not easy to come across, right? Because as we talk about these entrepreneurs, we talk about these folks and trying to motivate them, and a lot of them, as can be expected, when you want to start a business or something, you're like, well, what if I just reinvent the wheel? You know what I'm saying? What if I do the same thing again that everybody else is doing, and I'll just be in competition with the guy down the street who does the same thing. And then you guys both in the same room found a way to be unique. And I just think that's just incredible.
Wow, helping each other.
Thank you.
And then figured out a way to partner.
Which has really been the double blessing.
Yeah. That's where, that's definitely where it's at.
Yeah. And I think, to your question before about, the being that one, doing something better or different or standing out in any way. And for me, understanding that this mission, this idea of food waste, and food insecurity, and the way to actually practically, solve this problem by all this abundance that we have in San Diego. I mean, these millions and millions of, citrus groves that we've got. That is where, when you take your mission, when you take an idea, then it's not about you anymore. So being a writer, it's all about my ego. Leading a cause, no ego. It's like everyone should be doing this, and it's so easy. I mean, I sell this all the time to everybody because it's a great idea, and I have no ego invested in that part of it because it feels like something right and what people want to do.
It is right,
and they do want it,
and it's a bigger conversation. And I mean, and you got it in a nice, beautiful, sunshiny way. Yeah. But you're really helping out. Okay, so now here's another important piece of what happens on this podcast, right? Sometimes, because of the entrepreneurial spirit of the podcast, ideas are formed right
and
while
I saw
during
Sam.
the show. Did you see it?
It was like a light bulb. Now the lights are bright in here, but your light bulb was even brighter.
Oh, thank you.
So what was that?
So, comes in a couple parts. The grant.
He has 2 light bulbs.
The grant that your organization helped us get. The single largest piece of capital that it came with was something to help us depackage bread and pastries as they came in. So unlike buying...
And it's this huge machine. It's this really cool machine.
It's got to be cool.
Unlike buying bulk grains if I were a normal brewery or distillery, all of my ingredients come individually wrapped. If you can imagine a 12...
Opening up those, you got to open up with your teeth sometimes.
Sometimes. Those cupcakes are all individually cupped inside of the clamshell, and they're a pain.
Yeah.
So we got a $250,000 piece of machinery that's the size of a baby brontosaurus that it can undo this at 10,000 pounds an hour. But it could also be the county's largest compression juicer possibly ever.
Also, Sam is kind of brilliant, in case you haven't noticed already. You kind of got that right. He's like making connections everywhere. So, I'm not surprised that you're
But second, we just got our bottling line up to about 2,000 bottles an hour. It could go up to about 4.
Okay. Because juice is the next thing.
Well, juice could be the next thing. But even right now, orange, lemon, persimmon, lime extracts may not be precipitously huge markets, but they could be fun. They're not as regulated. They're not alcohol. Well, they tend to contain alcohol, but they're not treated that way. Could probably be sold at the farmers markets that you go to. There might be a way to kind of bridge the gap between where we're at now of making an incredible value add product, but that is regulated, can only be enjoyed by adults, has very specific uses and connotations, whereas things you might use for baking and cooking have a broader audience, don't have some of those same connotations, different tax bases, and could be shipped anywhere. How many tons do you have extra per year? Doesn't have to answer now, but like...
What do you mean extra?
Not extra, but like if they can't go to a feeding organization, where do they go?
Well, right now we're giving them all to feeding organizations. We don't know what they do with them, though. They might not be using all of them, so that's what we don't know. But to your point, just to say, because we cannot pick all the fruit all the time, we are limited in that way. We estimate that with the 600 growers that we have right now, we are missing out on 15 million pounds of unpicked citrus. That's how much is out there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
how much is out there. You guys got to come on a pick once, because you'll be absolutely floored at how much you get and how much is left. Because we work 3 hours at a time.
Do I also get to take some home?
Because that is part of the fringe benefits.
Can we go blood oranges? Because they make good margaritas.
We just picked 5,000 pounds of blood oranges. Oh my God! And we're gonna do ruby red grapefruits very soon. So again, just saying,
that's for mimosas.
I'm just saying.
Okay. So how can people come and help volunteer?
So yes, thank you for bringing that up, Zeke. So people can either, they can donate their time, they can donate their fruit, or they can donate their money if they go to producegood.org.
Got it.
producegood.org.
Love it. PRODUCEGOOD.org. All right. You guys got it. Okay. So now, just if you have any quick stories, I mean, I know these past couple of years have been tough for a lot of folks. If there's any like COVID type stories or things, I mean, how did you survive these things?
Well, he's got a better one, but I'll do mine first because his is way better.
Okay, let's hear it.
So ours is that, we start our whole model before COVID was we have these volunteers, they go out every weekend, they pick in these orchards. It's great, just like 1 or 2 times a week, big groups of people. It's really fun. Take your families, you're prancing around, it smells great, you're picking fruit. COVID hits, can't do that, no groups, nothing like that. We pivot to a model where we are now using just 2 or 3 people, maybe in a family. They are going out to pick just a few times, like a smaller amount, many more times a week. And we call that quick picks. And that turned into our niche. We now do that, as I said, we are doing 2 of those a day. Since COVID, we were absolutely amazed at the fact that the supply chain problem that was happening with everyone, food banks, restaurants, all of the stuff just stopped. We worked every single day. We took 1 week off from the time of the first shutdown to regroup, and then we worked every single day. And we crushed it. I mean,
awesome.
I can't even explain how much more we even did because again, people wanted to help so badly. They were stuck in their house and they're like, what can we do?
Of course.
And then we had the need, the 1 in 3, and then we had the fruit, which doesn't care about COVID. It just keeps growing.
Yes.
So that's how we did it. And we actually, COVID was so really instructive for us to understand where our power is. We are not big. We are not going to be a food bank. We are not going to store stuff. We are actually just moving it from the source to the need. We are transporters. We are moving it.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
So it was really good for us.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
That model innovation is so cool.
I know.
It is.
Yours is even better.
Mine's more dramatic. I don't know if it's better.
It's so good.
And I'm here for the
Hey, drama
theatrics.
sells tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if COVID hadn't happened, my business would already be gone.
Oh, really?
Interesting.
So part of that's just a quirk of our fundraising strategy, how long it took, how fast money was coming in. And for another podcast going into those details at this point, the round's closed.
But just
and
cut
that's
to the
fine.
chase here, Sam, because
So we had one more grant payment coming in. It was paid by reimbursements. We'd already had to spend it to get it back. And we had one more grant payment coming in. Maybe it would finance our bankruptcy. In May.
2020.
May 2020 would probably be when we, maybe April, file for bankruptcy and say like, hey, this didn't quite work out. We were stretched too thin. We had $2,000 left and cash. And COVID shuts down our only revenue stream, closes all of our customers, distribution stops. And with nothing else to do, that was probably one of the reasons why we were one of the first, possibly the first, to not make hand sanitizer, but to offer it directly to the public online.
Oh, wow.
The very first...
I did hear about this.
The very first 6 hours product was online, we cleared $28,000. And a lot of our would-be mentors, unscrupulous folk, of course, told us like, hey, don't sell out. It's so much easier to refund someone's money than to take it in the first place.
Yeah, unscrupulous.
Yeah, sure. But when we ran out of inventory, we cut it off, would make more as we could. The prices for the underlying alcohol that we eventually started buying because we couldn't make it fast enough were up 500, 600%.
Right.
250 gallons of ethanol was costing well over 10 grand at the time.
They're also unscrupulous people.
And so what started as a transition to just hand sanitizer in a small way, individual bottles, transitioned over the next 6 months into making it in bulk for, either other companies or retailers or other people doing co-packing work. And that 6 months was the single most vivacious. We invested it all back into the company, but vivacious of our company's history up until that point. As of July 1st of 2020, no one was buying hand sanitizer in bulk anymore. We sold maybe another 500 gallons for the rest of the year. Whereas before it was tens of thousands.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of like looked around and said, okay, well, I think we invested scrupulously with this money. We didn't blow it, but now we just have to gird our loins. So COVID was one of these experiences that gave a lot, but then took a lot, because normalcy is not something to return to. It's an average, and it takes a while.
Yeah.
So we had this flurry of activity, and then afterwards had to figure out how to manage the doldrums of a world that wasn't yet going back to bars, wasn't yet open, wasn't yet ready to re-engage in kind of even the same commuting habits, or like where people are driving, or how close are they going to be to your retail establishment versus your wholesale establishment. Everything had changed. And 2021 and 2022 have been, in some ways, much harder than 2020.
Wow.
Not necessarily financially. There have been some of those pockets, but the whole world got their own, at least, moral and blame-based pause button. If you went out of business right then, it's tragedy. But you have the ability to sleep at night knowing that it wasn't something that you caused.
Right.
This was a literal act of God, as insurance salesmen would tell us.
Yeah.
Sorry. Force majeure. And in every other moment of an entrepreneur's journey, it is very, very plausible that you are the one who caused your business to fail. And we've done a good job of surviving since then. But navigating those less morally pure waters was actually a harder challenge after the initial onset of COVID. So
that is a good story.
Thanks.
That is a good story. I mean, you know, the original pivot though was masterful.
Thank you.
And so quick. I mean, not surprising, because your mind is quick. So I imagine it's just
our mind was quick, but again, we were broke.
But you were broke, but you thought of, wow, what about this? And you were willing to take that chance.
Yeah, instead of just giving up.
Well, I mean,
just going,
I guess.
wow, we got $2,000 in cash left. Let's just call it quits, guys.
Exactly.
I guess, but there were other distilleries and other places that we know who took longer. They took a couple weeks of just trying to process the information, but we had nothing left. There's no savings or any other cushion to even take the time.
But that also just, again, speaks to your, like, okay, taking action. You got the vision, and then you got the action, and you did it. You just said, okay, I see this thing. We're going to do this, and then you did it.
Sam, just accept it.
Thank you.
Please,
You're at
thank you.
You're at least 2 weeks smarter than everybody else.
One of my favorite parts of that story,
smarter
though.
than everyone else. Okay.
We couldn't find the ingredients for hand sanitizer.
Okay.
Because everyone in the world was signing up.
Okay. You mean actually getting the ingredients?
One of the hardest at the time was the moisturizer, in order to not just have the alcohol and water, just like leach moisture from your hands. As was the WHO's prescription that was meant to be vegetable glycerin. I couldn't think of where the hell I could get any. Who the hell locally uses this stuff?
Let's see.
Bakeries.
And what did you think, Sam?
The vape company across the street.
Of course.
Vegetable glycerin?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So they were large enough to already be on a multi-year contract for the ingredient. So it wasn't subject to the massive price fluctuations or the inconsistency of the online market. And so when I called them up, whoever answered the phone said, I'll call you back. But then later the CEO called me 3 times that day and said, well, if this is happening now, let's work on this together.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
And that connection was probably the most extraneous. The most was everything
And who thought
else.
of that, Sam?
What?
Who thought of that connection?
Probably the guy who was chain smoking at 19.
Okay, all right. Just saying.
So what I'm gathering from Sam is that Sam doesn't accept a lot of the genius.
No, he does not. He's
That
not
happened.
gracefully accepting the genius. So
Yeah.
we have to help him.
Humility is a good trait.
Yeah. So when you think about that, I want to hear from you guys. What advice would you give? And it sounds like, Sam, you have a lot that you could give, to future entrepreneurs, future business owners, whatever that they could use or that worked for you that probably resonates with someone out there.
Two. I'll be succinct on both. Like, first, there's nothing you can't learn. With either the help of YouTube, books, mentors, something, there's nothing that you can't learn.
Yep.
You don't know how to wire something, learn how to wire it.
Yep.
And it comes with, I think it comes with entrepreneurialism, but there are a million ways to spend $1 million, and the worst way is paying it to someone else just to do something that you could have learned yourself.
Yeah.
You are more powerful than you think.
Mm-hmm.
The second is both metaphor and actuality. Don't be don't struggle with functional fixedness if you don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
It's a psychological phrase for like one tool, one job.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's making vodka out of bread or because it's actually a starch and that's how alcohol is made, or whether it's building structures out of secondhand materials, or applying yourself in a way that you haven't previously. Another man's treasure another man's trash, or in this case, another person's trash or the world's trash can be your treasure. Or can be all of our treasure. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to accept what someone else tells you is right for your business, right for your job, right for your future, right for anything. Mm-hmm. You have the luxury of being whimsical. You can make it up. And this ramble will stop with, there are also people who will give you a shit ton of money if you can spin a good enough story about why that change was necessary. You don't have to accept the world as it is.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Exactly what
Thank you,
Nita
Sam.
was teaching her daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Doing one thing is better than doing no thing, and everybody can do one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I like that
Simple
one.
as that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was clean. That was
Yeah.
tight.
That was clean.
Yeah.
That's actually what happens. So.
But I'm still going to give the business lesson of the day, too. There are 1 million ways to spend $1 million, and the worst you can do is spend it on something you could have learned yourself. Mm-hmm. That's clean.
Yeah, that is.
So good, Sam.
Any shout outs, upcoming events, or anything like that as we close out?
Tonight, if you're interested in watching two bartenders brawl, we have an ongoing competition series in which
You and Witt gonna fight?
No, not
I would
actually.
come to that. I would totally come to that.
This is the third. I know this is going to be published later, but there will be more of them. Local bartenders will make a draft cocktail, and the guests for the evening at this ticketed event will be able to tell which of these local bartenders is doing the best job, making the best drink. Mm-hmm. And the winner advances to the next round of a round robin. The winner gets a trip to Mexico, and the next thing is this Saturday we're launching a new menu. So I don't know if there's a way, at least on social media, to promote that before it actually happens, because I don't know if this will be published before.
Are you guys looking for judges or?
We will give you an honorary judgeship anytime.
Totally. Just call me up.
Asking for a friend, right?
Right. I'm asking for a friend.
So
A drinking friend.
if you have the ability,
Who has a drinking podcast?
if you have a drinking podcast that wants to be part or shot on scene for this,
100%.
let's do this for episode 4
Yeah.
of our thing. I don't know what episode number you'd be on.
Yeah.
So those are our two big ones. New menu on Saturday. we tied with Kentner Exchange for Best Cocktails in San Diego in 2020.
Did you really?
2020. So the San Diego Magazine hasn't run with that story for a little while.
So now it's a throwdown? Is it throwdown?
Yeah. Not between the two of us yet.
Oh, okay.
But we're a hidden gem as far as like on-premise drinking goes.
There's no doubt.
Have you guys been there yet?
Absolutely.
It's so fun.
I have not yet. But.
It's really amazing what they've done with the space they're in.
Why don't you give the location?
Okay. Yeah.
2420 Grand Avenue, Suite C. Right on the corner of Sycamore and Grand.
Vista.
If you drive just past the Toms and get to La Mirada, turn around.
Okay, don't do that. Don't do that. Just give the GPS thing. Now you're doing the dad thing. It's like you go to Tom's and you turn around. And it's like, and on the left you're going to see the station.
That's such a dad thing.
Sorry, but that is a dad thing.
It was a dad thing, but I just had.
Sorry, just everyone. They just put it in their phone, honey.
How about you? Need a shout outs, upcoming events?
Well, I'm gonna get real meta and big. So September 8th. A little ways away, but there is a 1 day of giving in San Diego. It's called San Diego Gives. Mm-hmm. It is a day that the whole county can give back to nonprofits that they like, or that is, something that can help the community. So it is 1 day event, sandiegogives.org. We're one of like 400 nonprofits there, but we were one of the founding members to start this whole like initiative. Mm-hmm. So just saying, if you guys are interested.
Beautiful. September 8th.
And you can it's actually opening up July 16th for donations. But again, it's a really wonderful way to understand that the whole county is coming together for nonprofits. And so that's it.
That's great. We encourage everybody. Let's come together to help.
Yeah.
We really thank you guys.
Thank you for
being on the show. I mean, this is a really good conversation.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. So I appreciate you joining us for our first episode of season 5.
Thank you so much.
All right. We're honored to have you guys, our guests, Sam and Nita, on our show talking about helping the community and making the world a better place, amongst so many other good things. Check out producegood.org. PRODUCE good.org to find out about any upcoming events where you can volunteer and help out. And also visit missadventure.co, missadventure.co. That's right, the website. And you got the address. Just don't pass the Texaco and when you go too far.
Tom,
praise be.
Go purchase your bottle of the world's first vodka made from excess baked goods. Okay, we want to shout out the all of our social media. Everything is at Produce Good on your end. Is everything at Misadventure Co?
Yes.
Okay, on your end, and we want to make sure. So thank you so much for watching this week's episode or tuning in. Make sure to like and follow us on SameBizPod, SameBizPod, and at A Different Day Radio. Don't forget to comment down below on ways you are making a change in your community. Okay, also thank you to my amazing guest co-host, Natasha Mills.
You guys are welcome. You guys are welcome.
Tune in to the Odd Pairing Podcast. The first release was today.
Congratulations.
No wonder you were like, ooh.
Yeah. It's been
all over the place.
It's been a busy day. It's an awesome show. And I really want you guys to check out the Odd Pairing Podcast, okay? With Natasha and her co-host, Paige McWay-Akers. Okay, now once again, thanks to Sam and Nita for being our guests. Thank you to all the listeners who supported our show and kept asking me when we were coming back with another season. We're here. We're back. Lastly, I want to thank the A Different Day Radio crew, Mateo, Jeff, James, Carlos, Nash, Greg, Sophia, and all the amazing folks behind the scenes making the podcast happen.
Yeah.
Let's get it. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers with our oranges. I love it.
Thank you for listening to Same Business, Different Day. We truly appreciate your support. Please like, subscribe, and leave a nice comment on all platforms. It really helps our show. The Same Business, Different Day podcast is produced by A Different Day Radio, Star Fox Media, and James Russell.